Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and I'm here for sort of the Watch Talk Saturday live stream that I like to do. We have Geneva Watch Days upon us. It's actually going on right now. I think it started 2 days ago, technically, and I think it wraps up on Sunday in a day or so. I think it ends on the 1st. But anyway, regardless of when it ends, it is ongoing right now, and that means we actually have a number of watch reveals, whereas last week, I was hurting for finding watch topics. I think there were 2 releases I remember seeing, and neither of them I wanted to talk about. This time, there have been more than enough in the way of releases to be able to cover. So we actually are going to go over 6 today that I've chosen. We're going to hit on some stuff from Konstantin Chaykin. We're going to do, I'm sorry about all the names. We're going to do Longines. Doxa has something kind of new we'll talk a little bit about. Tudor has something very just kind of new that we're going to talk about. Of course, we have to talk about the Moser and Studio Underdog collaboration effort. So that's going to be like our penultimate topic. And then we will end with Oris, which has, of course, some new models to consider, or some new designs within their model lines to consider. So those will be the lineup today. Housekeeping items. One of the watches you probably did not hear me talk about is the new C60 Trident from Christopher Ward. We're not going to cover that today because I actually had a pre-recorded video that came out a few days ago. I actually had a couple of videos recently. One was on the Tissot PRX, the mecha base. I already forgot the name of the anime. The 1970s anime based one that like everyone in Europe knows and no one in America knows. I have a video on that with just first reactions. And then Christopher Ward actually got me high-res images weeks ago about their new release. So that was an embargoed email, which watch brands watching. While I don't want free watches because I think it comes across as biased to, receive those and do them as reviews. If you have media packets, you can give them to me early. It lets me put the video together before the embargo gets lifted, and then it can drop on time. So I'm more than happy to work with that, especially with high-res images, because it makes my life so much easier. So that's why I could get you such good zoom-ins on that video. Only thing I don't like about my Christopher Ward video is I recorded it through OBS, and the sound, the way I have to check my mic settings on that. So my sound is a little tinnier than it should be. It's like the gain was a little too low and I didn't notice it, but it turned out okay, I think, in my opinion. I think it's a 6 out of 10 on audio. Video, though, was really good, I think. So anyway, long story short, that video is already out. So we're not going to spend any time talking about that new Luminor style Trident watch today on the live stream because we've got so many other things to hit on. Other housekeeping items, as some of you know, I have been trying to reduce the size of my collection overall. I have I've sold my Orient finally. I have sold my Stova Flieger Type B, went right away. I have just traded my Reverso, and so I did get a new watch because it was a trade. I went ahead and picked up the Watches with Dennis people have seen it already on the 99 Cent Club Watches with Dennis people have seen it already. This is the Parmigiani Tonda PF micro rotor. See if I'll let you get a little bit of a focus on it. It's so difficult. You're seeing my monitors reflect back into the screen. But anyway, so this is a watch that I liked the design of when I first saw. I didn't see this model originally. I think the first one I really saw was when they put out the GMT version, which for me was a little useless as a GMT because there's no 24-hour aspect to it. But anyway, I saw they have no dates now, which are really nice looking. This obviously is the date model, and the prices on used models have fallen quite a bit. So I started seeing a lot of these trading under 16,000. So I reached out to one of the watch companies, one I hadn't worked with before. They had offered me the best value of anyone. I contacted like 6 different dealers on the Reverso. The Reverso was a hard one to move. So anyway, they offered me the best trade value on it. And then they reduced this watch even more for the cash outlay. I think it was an interesting scenario because I believe they accidentally looked at the wrong watch. And so they told me a price that seemed exceedingly low. And I was like, are you sure? Because this is the watch I'm asking for. And they're like, I'm so sorry, we looked up the wrong watch. But they only added 1,000 more on top of it, which I still thought was kind of low. But they're like, we feel bad because we quoted the wrong thing. So anyway, long story short, this arrived yesterday. Probably have a review out in a week. keeps good time so far. I went only in dial up. I've tested it. So, well, I'll do a full, battery of tests on it in the review. Scratches, of course, it is used. I saw those in the photos. Interesting thing is I noticed it last night with a loop. Never look at a watch at a loop unless you want to see problems. There is something on the dial, very, very hard to see. It shows up almost as dust in some of the photos. It depends on the light. I think it's a scratch. I think maybe, I don't know if a watchmaker ever worked on it before, or when they were installing the indices, if they accidentally nicked the paint. But it gleams like brass, and the dial should be made out of brass on this model. This is a lower end model, so it should be brass. So interesting. But yeah, I went back and looked and I couldn't see it in the photos, but like in this studio lighting, it doesn't really show. It depends on the type of light and the angle. So it was sort of one of those interesting things, but it's one of those, it's like, what do you do? So I don't know, for those of you with watches, I have had a lot of dial issues, regardless of price point. My Moser has dust on the dial. In fact, I bought that one from the 1916 company. This was from a European watch company, if you're curious about it. I always say where I buy things from. So I often use dealers because they have warranties, and they'll often do trades, which are less pain than trying to sell watches. I'm still working on selling my Omega Seamaster 300M. The number of tire kickers and insultingly low ball offers has been like, I get people who message me all the time offering me less than even the stingiest secondhand dealers do. It's absolutely shocking, but it is what it is. So anyway, like my Moser has dust on the dial, and the 1916 company had said the prior owner, I think they got rid of it because they didn't like that it had dust on the dial from the factory, and they had cleaned the dust off. But what it turns out is, I think a static charge on a little piece of dust keeps clinging to the hour hand. So sometimes it's on the dial, and sometimes it's on the hour hand, and you can't see it because it's on the underneath. So it's like that one I actually started to take apart to try and clean it off. And then once I was trying to get the movement decased, I was like, you know what? Do I really care that much? Or can I just wait and then ask them to clean it when it needs a service? So that's going to be my stance with this sort of thing. A nick on the dial or whatever it is that I needed a loop to first see. I can identify it now that I know what to look for in the right lighting conditions. It's like, you know what? It can be hard for people with OCD, but if you can learn, like, I understand like things with the chat, when the bezels don't align, it's really, really obvious stuff. But I mean, my Orient had a little bit of glue on the logo. Again, you could see it up close if you knew what to look for without the loop. Otherwise, I never noticed it at normal, like time telling distance and stuff. It was just like, it's a quirk. But if you're someone who gets affordable watches and you think getting luxury watches means they're going to be perfect, they will not be perfect. They will not. In fact, when you start going through with the hand-worked stuff, you can often, that's part of the, I guess, charm, you might say. I've actually used the loop on my Breguet to try and see if I could find flaws. I wanted to find flaws in the guilloche because it's hand guilloche. So I wanted to see if I could see, like, maybe they accidentally put too much pressure and I'd see a little bit deeper gap. I haven't caught it yet, but I'm not done with my analysis. I bet you they messed up. But that's kind of the point. I think this sort of guilloche actually is machined. So they machined the brass because this is what is it? It's called corn something style, Côte d'Orange, I think is what they say in French, but it's really, really fine. And I was like, how does a person by hand do that? And I don't think they CNC it. I think it's in fact, I watched a video on Parmigiani and they indicated they put brass dials through the CNC, then they coat them in the gray paint. So that could be other thing. It could be an application issue with the paint. Very interesting. But anyway, I try not to let it hold against, but probably will be pointing it out especially because I got it used. Who knows if someone opened it up beforehand? The warranty card I have, but it wasn't dated. So anyway, I am rambling when we have so many other topics to go over, but I always find watch stuff like that interesting because people will harp on all sorts of things. I heard good things about this bracelet. This is why I picked the Parmigiani. I was down to that and a Chopek. I like the Chopek Antarctique, but two things put me to the Parmigiani. One, everyone said the bracelet was better on the Parmigiani, even though there's no micro adjust. We're going to cover that in the review. And then the Chopek was over 10 millimeters. And this might sound a little snobby, but I have decided that if we're doing an integrated sports bracelet watch and I don't care what the use price is, if it retails over $10,000, it better be under 10 millimeters thick. I've decided that is a rule, and Chopek is under 11, but it's not under 10. And given that they cost over $20,000 new, I think they need to figure out how to put their watch on a diet. So this one is closer to 8, I think, millimeters. But this is my first micro rotor watch also. So anyway, lots of firsts. First micro rotor watch. Not my first integrated sports watch. It's not my first Parmigiani. I do have a dress watch Parmigiani. But anyway, I'm still liquidating. So my collection has gotten smaller still, even with this tray. It's still gotten smaller. So I'm being good. I was up to 19 watches, and I just don't want 19 right now. I feel that is too many. So before we jump into all of this Geneva Watch Day stuff, I'm going to go ahead, like I like to do, and try and greet all of you in the chat. I hope we have a fun discussion today. So good morning to the Escapement Show and to Kevin and to Rob. And Rob, thank you so much for being a 99-cent club member. I do appreciate it. Same to Koji. And thank you for the compliment on the Christopher Ward video. That's been one of my better performing videos. Anything that gets over 1,000 is a better performing video for my little baby's first YouTube channel. So I appreciate that. Good morning, Joel Bolt. Welcome to the live stream. And yes, rest in peace to the Reverso. I'm sure Koji argued strongly for me not to get rid of the Reverso. I did get more in trade than I bought it for. So even though I got lowballed compared to like Chrono 24 is like, you can get like almost $7,000 for this watch. No, yeah, new. Anyway, I felt it was, especially with the price differential and with what they allowed me to pay with the ACH. So a lot of times, if you've never done this, by the way, with dealers, if they have one price only listed, some of them, like David SW, will list an ACH price. Ask them for an ACH price, not an ACH, a wire. If they're willing, if you're comfortable enough wiring them, like you trust them as a company, and they don't list a wire price, ask them about a wire price, because they save like that 3.9% off the credit card fee. So they should at least, in my opinion, knock off about 3% in order to give you an additional discount. The only thing is, if the watch is on the more affordable end, make sure your wire fee isn't more than the differential. So like I've had wire fees range from $20 to $35, I think, depending. So just be aware of your wire transfer fee, because it's not like an ACH. They're going to bill you for it. The Escapement Show says, absolutely stunning, Dennis. I first saw the Tonda PF on release in 2021. One of my favorite watches at the time. Beautiful micro rotor movement. I definitely go for it over a hype Rolex. Yeah, the movement does look great. Voucher movements. Again, I already had a Parmigiani, so I already had a movement, but the micro rotor aspect is very interesting as well. And that's not something I've had. My Parmigiani Kalpa Tonda does have a rotor, but it's a standard full-size rotor, and it's not in platinum, and it doesn't have a fancy engraving on it. I do think they beveled it though. Underachieving Watch Collector, welcome to the live stream. And to Aussie Expat Watches, welcome as well. I think you had some feedback on one of my more recent videos. I appreciate that. And Peter, good morning as well too, and welcome to the live stream. And so, see, Aussie saying, I'm starting to feel the redundancy at about 10 watches. Now 11, and there's some serious neglect on my very nice pieces in my collection now. Yes, the struggle is real. And I've thought about, we have so many watches today. Well, I'll go into it a little bit. We can go long if we need to. I mean, you guys might not be able to. I can do what I want. It's my channel. So, yeah, for me, it's sort of that... And I think this will be a good topic, so I want to do it as a standalone, but it's kind of what's a collector and what's an enthusiast? And am I really a collector? Because I churn watches quite a bit. I mean, my Reverso is one of my longer lasting watches, but most of my stuff lasts in the collection maybe a couple of years, and then it goes. And because I feel very strongly that aside from a few select pieces that I really do have for, like the Spiro Agnew watches that I have because there's a story behind it. I don't have them to wear. But otherwise, if I don't wear them, I don't see the point in keeping them. I'm like, I should let someone else own it who would enjoy it more. But a collector wouldn't really care, would they, if they were just amassing watches? But to me, it's like, and I keep it as I started this year. I've only gotten bad this year. I start to log them, and I'm mathematically really rigidly measuring how often I wear my watches. And I could tell mentally, like I knew I wasn't wearing my Seamaster anymore. I've worn it like 10 or less times this year. And it's been, we're over halfway through the year. So, those sort of things have made it a little easier to go, I'm definitely not wearing that anymore. And some of it has just been like with job changes and stuff, different watches have risen. So like this was a think about, because it's an integrated sports watch. I mostly wear dress watches to work. So I thought this one was subtle enough that I would be okay with it at work. I can wear whatever. I wear my Seamaster to work when I wanted to, but it's just sort of like, I have these other pieces I prefer in that environment. So it's been interesting, but and yeah, you lose money on most of the sales and trades, but again, it's a hobby. And so from that aspect, I don't really care about that side of it. It's just, I just hate taking all the pictures. So it's so frustrating. So, but yeah, it's so for me, I don't know if it means I'm more of an enthusiast than a collector, but I definitely weigh more on I should be wearing them. And if I'm not wearing them, that is money that could be in another watch I would wear. And that's kind of what it comes down to. So I see Aussie says, agree, got to wear them. Doesn't care about what we use as terms of labels of enthusiast or collector, which is a fair enough point. And he has clearly yes, I do love a good pie chart. So yes, the pie chart's my favorite part. I have my list and I log and I'll put in extra. If I wear multiple watches in a day, I'll put them on that day. And then I pivot table that and then I pie it so I can really easily see it. Skateman Show says, me too, Aussie. I've got way too many watches. I'm consolidating now and want to build memories with the ones I have. And Aussie says, I'm going to be slow to consolidate if I do. I want to see like maybe 3 years of utter neglect before I make a decision I regret. That's true. I have not yet had an instance. We'll see with a reversal. I have not yet had an instance where I have let a watch go and I wished I had it back. There are watches that I let go that I still liked, but I wasn't wearing them. But to me, like if I was to get a reverso again, I'd probably get a gold one, not a steel one. And so I'm kind of like, I'd get a different one, or I'd get a duo face, not a mono face. So like I could see myself in a reverso again, but never the same model I had. I'm done with that model. I'd get one smaller too. That model was a little long in my opinion. What isn't a little long, or a little large, I should say, is the new ultra thin Thing King prototype from Konstantin Chaykin. And apologies to Konstantin for my horrible pronunciation. But all right, it's I almost said Watches and Wonders. It is not Watches and Wonders. We are about half a year away from that, but it is Geneva Watch Days. And so a lot of brands have been revealing new watches. We're going to talk about a number of them. I said we're going to talk about 6. We're going to start with this one. So in the world of wristwatch horology, I generally see 2 types of competitions. Who can make the deepest dive watch and who can make the thinnest dress watch? Because I can't do anything else because it's super thin. So what else can you call it that a dress watch? So I've always respected the latter more than the former. And the reasons I think are pretty obvious. The engineering prowess that must go into truly making a watch thin is incredibly impressive. Whereas making a truly deeper going new world record setting even dive watch seems to consist of making the watch unbearably large and just thickening everything up and then dusting your hands off and saying, look at how awesome we are as engineers. I don't think that's particularly impressive, just to make something bigger and then say, look, we're brilliant. Making something smaller and still letting it work, that requires brilliance. So Konstantin Chaykin is known more for their kind of face dial watches, and this is definitely in that vein. It is only 1.65 millimeters thick. You can see here how they've kind of achieved it. So the time telling aspects of it seem pretty straightforward and able in terms of how they've kind of they've got it in the face format. I think some of this is to try and help with the rigidity, like this name here because the thinness is so ultra thin. But, you have your hours and your minutes. You've got kind of an indicator to let you know what the hour and the minute sides are, though I think the 12 and the 60 kind of make it pretty obvious even to a layperson. As is often the case with these ultra thin watches, the movement is built into the case itself. So you can see how they've done it. There's just this plate. You see the jewels are right there to allow everything to function as it needs to. And then there's what they call it a palanquin here, but it's there's this module, this detachable, retachable module that you can hook on and wear the watch, but you need it to wind it. So it does a keyed winding system, and that's what this attachment allows for. So that is what lets you have the crown. And you can see the watch isn't very thick with that on there. I believe it's still under 6 millimeters. So let's see if we can find some basic information. It's powered by the K23-0 movement. I don't know anything about that. That's a 2.5 hertz movement, though. I do know that it's 18,000 vibrations an hour. So very, very, very low vibrations, which helps with the power reserve because, again, there's not much room for a mainspring on this watch. So anyway, 1.65 is with it without the case. I think there's a basic summary of some of this information. Power reserve is only 32 hours, again, because of its ultra thinness, even with the 2.5 hertz aspect. And I swear, because I read this article, there, I want to give you the measurement of what it is with that attachment on there. 5.4. There we go. 5.4 millimeters. So it is incredibly, incredibly small, even with, if you want to wear it with the ability to wind it at will. But if you want it super thin and get it under 2 millimeters, you can have it as super thin and under that sizing. So I don't know if there were any broad thoughts on this. Someone had pointed this out in the Watches with this Dennis Discord, which, by the way, there's a link to join that. You don't have to be a 99-cent club member if you want to be in the Discord. So there's a link to that in the video description. Also a link to all these articles. We're using Housekeeping here for this instance. The only thing for me, like, I've never seriously considered buying an ultra thin watch for two reasons. One, I think every time I've seen them, the pricing has been extremely, extremely high. So this is a production prototype. So this is not for sale anyway. So that's kind of moot here. So we couldn't buy it even when we wanted. The other thing is, though, they've always looked super uncomfortable. Like, they can't flex much because they're so thin. They're like a little wafer. The analogy I've used before is a Pringle. It looks like wearing a Pringle on the wrist, and most of them haven't looked particularly comfortable to me. Now, someone pushed back on that, I think very fairly, saying, well, but they're so light. Like, and they had tried on one of the Octofinissimo Ultra Thins, and they're like, it's really, really light. And so, with that being said, as light as these watches are, given their thinness, comfort might not, the shape might not be comfortable, but with no weight behind it, does it really matter? Does it really matter if it hugs the wrist, if there's barely any, if it's a feather? Probably not, quite frankly, except you might not like how it looks. And I know that's, broadly speaking, an issue a lot of people have with the Octofinissimos is I've always been told, like, I've never ordered one as a gander just to try out, even though I think they kind of look cool. Because I've always been warned, try an Octofinissimo on first, because certain wrist shapes, it does not, like, it just doesn't rest well, depending what your wrist shape is and how your wrist bone is. So more so than a lot of other watches where, like this Parmigiani or Rolex watches or Omegas, which are pretty forgiving, quite frankly. But of course, they're much, much larger in size. So I'm going to go ahead and see what you all, here's just a picture of all the little parts on this little workbench thing. Oh, with a little Bergeron screwdriver. I do like those Bergeron screwdrivers. I do have a little set. I mostly just use a couple of them anymore for changing bracelets out, but or changing out links. But they are very nice, very sturdy, and you can change the tips if you don't want to sharpen them. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I am not sponsored by Bergeron. Let me go ahead and get caught up with the chat, and then we will move on to the next watch. And so, Joe, welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99-cent club member. Says, too thin. I do love the Vacheron Constantin Historique Ultra Fine 1955. That was the thinnest in 2010, which was about 4.1 millimeters. Yeah, they have come down a lot since then. And in fact, I believe this Housekeeping article, which again is linked in the video description so you can read it, goes over a number of the competitors in this race. So Piaget, I remember this when the Piaget got to 2 millimeters with the Altiplano Ultimate Concept Tourbillon, which, I mean, a tourbillon watch at 2 millimeters. I don't remember the Richard Mille, that was 1.75 millimeters, the Ferrari one. And then Bulgari did the 1.7 millimeters, COSC certified, so highly accurate, with the Octofinissimo Ultra COSC, which I do remember when that one was revealed. So anyway, this one's not much thinner than the Bulgari was. This one's only gotten down about another 0.15 millimeters. But of course, we're so thin at this point, it would be very difficult to get much thinner. The Escapement Show says, this prototype looks cool. I would like to see general production models be sprayed colors that have more classic Chaykin face designs put on them. I bet you that they would. I think this is a good photo for it. So you can see where they could, have a nose type thing. Maybe you get rid of these numbers, or you do them in a different font, and you have them be the eyes. And then you could do different, just painted designs. You wouldn't want to animatron anything down here, but where it says the brand name, we could actually have all sorts of mouth shapes, Joker styles, clown styles, whatever that you would want to do. I guess the Joker is a clown, but anyway, yeah, I agree. I think ultimately that will be the case. I think they just did it like this for prototype purposes, because I bet ultimately the artistic expression, I do like that it still looks like a face. So this still, like, you would see this and you've never, if you'd only ever seen the regular Konstantin Chaykin watches, you would know this is a Konstantin. So I think they've done a pretty good job with it, but it definitely could be more colorful. But as a prototype, I totally understand why they didn't go in that direction. So anyway, it was an interesting one. So I thought it was worth pointing out. So let's jump to another watch, which I don't think is an interesting one. However, I do think it may be popular with some people, and it definitely is a very popular brand, and it's far more on the affordable end, and that will be Longines, which will be new colorways. This Geneva Watch Days, there has been a lot of new colorway discussions going on, reveals that are really just different colors, and in fact, this is not going to be the only one of those that we are going to do. Now, the reason why I'm kind of on this is I've never liked the Longines Legend Diver as a look. Like, there's so many Longines watches that I look at and I go, I really like the look. Like, we've talked about them all the time, like the Spirit Zulus and all that. Like got all these dial designs I really like. These have always been not that. And I think part of it is the the internal bezel, what super compressor style stuff just never has worked as well for me. Like the Polaris leaves me cold. This is the same way, though it's going to be far more affordable. But here you go. These are in the 39 millimeter sizing, which they came out with not that long ago, and it was a very, very popular sizing. These were traditionally 42 millimeter watches. So they did I think it was 2023. So it's just last year, the 39, and it's a no date, not the date version. So they've had some winners here with that approach. And so now this is just offering you some different colorways. They've got a blue one, they've got the red one, and then they've got the green one you saw at the start. And so again, you've got the dual crown system because the internal rotating bezel requires a crown for you to be able to manipulate it. My issues with it are mostly, I mean, quite frankly, there's basically nothing about this watch I like other than the colors are good, and I like the 39 millimeter size. Like, I've leaned more to smaller divers than larger. So, I mean, 42 is a fine size for almost everyone as a dive watch anyway. But 39. I think my Baltic Aquis scaff is a 39, and it's a really good wearable size. But other than that, other than the color, and I guess if I wanted an internal rotating bezel, I think that looks okay. I don't like basically anything else about this. I don't like this. I don't like the automatic and cursive script. I don't like the font for the hour numerals. I like all of them. I hate all of them. I don't like the handset. This, and those of you who've seen my channel for a while know I don't like cathedral hands. I don't like the bulbous cathedral hand. The Tudor Ranger has an arrow hand like this. I hate it too. And I don't like this much better because it's basically the same shape. The minute hand's fine. The second hand's okay. But no, like nothing. I don't like anything here. Like nothing about any of this makes me want to buy this watch. But I thought maybe some of you might like to buy it or would want to talk about it. I do like the colors. Like, and you see them like this one here in the light, which this plays with the light really well. I think it's an attractive set of colorways. I like all three colorways, but nothing else about this is working for me. In fact, I thought I said blue, but maybe it's really more of a gray. I'm not quite sure. So summary information, and this is over with monochrome. So again, link in the video description, but these are just under 13 millimeters thick, which is fine for a dive watch. It's nothing to write home about. Stainless steel, unsurprisingly. We've got the trend crowns that I've mentioned. They are 300-meter water resistant watches, though, by the way. So being under 13 millimeters, this at 12.7 is, I think those new Christopher Wards they're under 12. So they're thinner. So again, but we know Longines does not do thin very well. So it's just something to point out. So yeah, they have, all right. So they call it anthracite gray. So anthracite gray, I think I said blue earlier, which is clearly very, very wrong. And then they have their terracotta, the kind of pink one, and green, which is the green one. Well loomed, I'm sure. I don't think there were any loom shots in this article. 20 millimeter strap width, 3,650 euro though. Now I know Longines has been moving up market, but you're gonna hear me typing here because I want to do a conversion because I'm an American and I'm not smart enough to do the conversion in my brain. So 3,650 euro is $4,000 US. I do not see a $4,000 watch here. I guess that's probably my biggest fundamental complaint that I have with it. So This may be an aesthetic some of you really like. I think this is pretty pricey for what these are. Even though I'd say the colorways may be considered improvements over what we've historically seen, depending on your taste. There's just nothing else really about this watch that I appreciate. So anyway, but this was Longines' big Geneva Watch Days reveal. So I don't know what you guys think, but I didn't care much for it. Sorry, I saw Escapement Show was the next to reply, and I clicked on his older reply. So he says, the Legend Diver Bronze was my favorite version of this watch. The bracelet looks comfortable as I'm a big fan of beads of rice bracelets. I guess Longines are late to the color dial table. Koji goes, if those were sunburst styles, if they were sunburst styles, they might win me over more. But I do struggle a bit with the internal bezel compressor format. It's kind of a cool concept, but visually it's never worked as well for me. But for some of you, again, that's why I wanted to show them. And the beads of rice bracelet point that Escapement Show said, I'll throw that back up here. Get in. I have heard very good things about most beads of rice bracelets. I'm trying to think if I've ever owned one. I do not believe so. I have a mesh bracelet. It's pretty comfortable. It's one of my Mr. Jones watches. I don't think I've ever ended up with a beads of rice. I think maybe 7-link is the most I've had as a configuration, which is, I guess, sort of similar. But anyway, it could be very, very comfortable. I'm not going to write off anything about that. Its sizing's not ridiculous. Like its thickness for its water rating and its diameter, they're all in good proportion. This is not like some of my other things I've criticized with Longines, where they've stuck too many modules in and they've lost sight of they've lost the plot because they're so worried about making watches that have all the features that they get thicker and thicker and thicker because they're just stacking stuff on top of itself. Koji says the close-up shots aren't terribly flattering, but I'd have to see it in person. Yeah, I mean, they are. At least we're seeing some hands-on ones and not renders. So, hats off to. I don't know if these photos were direct, like if Monochrome took them or if Longines gave them. I haven't done the research on it to know, because sometimes you just get the photo sets as part of the press kit and it's them with their models wearing them. And that's when you've probably noticed it when you watch YouTube videos or go to multiple articles and you see all the same photos. That's always the clear place where the brand just gave them all the photos, which, I mean, I am completely reliant on that model. So I appreciate it, but sometimes their photos are trashed here. It just depends. And Escapement Show says another case of Longines trying to position themselves next to Tudor. He asks that as a question. I believe yes. Here's what I think is happening with what's going on with Swatch Group. So they see Tudor. I think Rolex, Hans Wilder Foundation, is like, Tudor, we want to position to compete with Omega. And I think Swatch Group is like, no. Omega is competing with Rolex. We are not going to be trash tiered against Tudor. And so they're trying to move the pricing of Omegas up market, which they're definitely doing. And then I think they're moving. We know Longines prices are going up quite a bit too. I think Swatch Group thinks that Longines is the competitor to Tudor. And I think Rolex thinks Tudor is the competitor to Omega. And Omega thinks they're the competitor to Rolex. But Rolex thinks they're the competitor to no one because they're Rolex. I don't know. So anyway, I kind of lost sight of my train of thought there, but I think you feel the flow of what's going on. There's a lot of brand tiering, and Swatch Group is very rigid with their brand tiers. It's not like Richemont where you look and it's like some of these watches are operating in the same price bracket, and it's kind of curious. With Swatch Group, I always get much more of a feeling like there is a rigid hierarchy and there is some spillover, at the extremes in the price bands from one brand to another. Like you will have low-end Hydro Conquest Longines that will be at the price of certain higher-end Tissot's, but there's a staggering and Longines falls under, and then there's an Omega, and then there's like the, Geo and then, Breguet up at the top. Like that's how I think they do it. But I think some of how they place it is where they think their competitor is. Like Swatch Group doesn't view Breguet as a competitor to Rolex. Breguet is supposed to be competing with Patek. So it's stuff like that. Bill, welcome to the live stream, by the way, if I haven't greeted you yet. Agreed. Bronze case with black dial is the best version of this diver. I do love a good bronze diver. In fact, it's the only dive watch I'm not trying to sell out of my collection right now is my Baltic bronze Aquis. I didn't mention it on this video, but my Aquis is a bronze one. It's not a stainless steel one. However, we have more divers to talk about, and I'm afraid they are also not bronze. However, I believe this will be. I was gonna say I thought this was going to be my last diver, but I think we're going to end with Oris, which will be a diver, or at least one of them will be. Forgive me, I'm talking so much. So let's go to Doxa. This is a darling brand with a hardcore fan following, and this definitely leans into a true hardcore Doxa dive watch approach. This is the sub 300T professional Aristera limited edition. Articles with Hodinky. Links in the video description so you can go explore that. So what's the big thing here? It's a left-handed Doxa. That's the big change up. So because Aristeri is Greek for left. So now you know how they named the watch. This, as it noted with the title, it's a limited edition. This is only orange, 300 units. It's got the aluminum bezel. We'll go down to the stats real quick. So it's got the aluminum bezel. It's 42.5 millimeters, 14 millimeters thick, but the water resistance here is 1,200 meters. So this is the super serious dive watch. We're not in baby's first wading pool 300 meters anymore. We're all the way at the bottom of the ocean, well, parts of the ocean. So you got the standard loom setup, aluminum bezel. You talked earlier, there was a discussion about beads of rice bracelets from the escapement show. Well, we got beads of rice bracelets here. If you want to get the bracelet version, you saw at the top, there was also a strap available. It comes with the strap. So it's not like that some of them are NATO and some of them are beads of rice. You will get the NATO strap with the beads of rice bracelet. It's a 20 millimeter lug width too. So if you want to use third party, that's not going to be any problem for you whatsoever. It is only driven by the Sellita SW200, which is what I've come to associate a lot with Doxa. So we're talking the standard 38-hour power reserve, total EBOSH movement that's been around for decades. Not insignificant pricing at $2,500. But remember, we just got done talking about these Longines that I'm throwing back up on the screen, which was 3,650 euro or 4,000 US dollars. And this, as a limited model, is only 2,500. The biggest criticism on the price point will be the fact that it's driven by a Sellita SW200, but the Longines movement isn't anything to write home about. The L888.6, yeah, I'm going to say, I know it's an ETA base. Yeah, it's based on the 831.11. So, you know, they swatchify it, you know, they make it 3.5 hertz and stretch the power reserve. That's what they tend to do with most of the Longines movements. But anyway, I like this a lot better. I would just go ahead and get a right-handed non-limited version in this style. But if you're a lefty or you're a Doxa collector, you might really like this a lot. I think I always associate the orange dial with Doxa. They're often seen as the ones who have first done it. I don't know if that's truly confirmed or not, but I've always accepted it as fact. So the sub 300T professionals, it doesn't really look to me like the 200 one they have, which I also think is an attractive watch. There are other dive watches that look a lot like it. This has always been Doxa. Like this, to me, it looks so Doxa. External bezel, so it's, you know, I like it better than the super compressors and the internal bezels and all of that. It's just this and the cushion case, you know, it looks a lot like a Seiko turtle casing. It's a good, which my one Seiko I've had is a turtle because I like the cushion case. So I just like the look of this in almost every way other than I would just find a right-handed one because I have no desire for a lefty watch, and I'd rather pay less and not get a limited. But if these features appeal to you, there you go. I think this is a very nice looking watch. And the only real criticism that I would have would be I sympathize with people complaining about $2,500 for a Sellita, but that is like a gray market price you would pay for a Tudor 1926. It's going to be driven by the same movement. So, you know, it is on par with a lot of other. Yes, you can find other watches that use a Sellita that are less, but it's not a ridiculous price point, I guess is what I am saying. So that is what I have to say on that. And I see the chat has been more active with this watch, so we will go ahead and get caught up. But first, I have to acknowledge that Joel Bolt has claimed that Sunkist Zero equals God tier soda. Yeah. So here's the thing: this is the only orange sodas that we're getting real serious, Joel. So I'm gonna blow it up in. See, this zooms in. I can't get the watch to zoom in well. We can get this. Here's why Sunkist Zero is. I only drink diet sodas ever since college, but because I wanted the calories for other food. So The reason why I like Sunkist so much, besides that it tastes the best, I'll tell you why it tastes the best, actually. And this is super important watch stuff. So guys, don't downvote, upvote because you support Sunkist. Caffeine. It is the only mass-produced orange soda pop that I know of with caffeine in it. Almost all the others, like Fanta, do not have caffeine. That is why I buy Sunkist. So anyway, if you didn't know, like if you ever drank orange pop and you're like, I just don't feel any energy. You want that caffeine fix. You need to get Sunkist. 7-Up's got your back. Coke ain't going to keep you up. 7-Up knows where it's at. So there you go. Matthew, welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99-cent club member. Like to acknowledge that. I'm going to go ahead and put back on the Doxa on the screen. He says, I'm left-handed. We are sorely underrepresented in watches. Well, Rolex tried to help you out with the Sprite, but then collectors just swooped in and bought them all so you couldn't have them. So I do sympathize with you. I would never buy a GMT Sprite because I am not left-handed, and that watch should go to someone who's going to wear it on their right wrist. But yes, it's definitely been more of a, I basically one of two things. I don't know any left-handed people who wear left-handed watches. Most of them just put up with having a right-handed watch on their right wrist. And I know some lefties who will go ahead and just wear the watch on the left wrist anyway. So that's usually what I see happen. Joel Bolt, also a lefty apparently, says, I will never buy a left-handed watch because I don't want the crown to dig into my wrist like you savages. Now, I have heard some left-handed people say that very same thing, and they say they like wearing the right-handed watch on the right wrist because when they flex, the crown doesn't ever dig in. I don't tend to find on most watches that I actually get the crown. I mean, my skin is I do it here. Oh, here, everyone wants to see the skin flappy. This is a skin flappy live stream now. See it notice it's not leaving a mark as I do it with this watch. But I have had it happen. My Ming. I had a Ming Messina Lab collab. I did not get rid of that watch because of the bad taste of getting it. The watch wasn't working right. It had to be serviced. I'll forgive flaws, but it wasn't running right. I didn't get rid of it because of that. I got rid of it because every time I reached into my pocket to get quarters out to play pinball, a red welt would start to develop on my wrist. So the crown was too sharp and it would cut into my hand. And I've never had any brand, low end or high end, do it like that watch. So it taught me a lesson. I can't have that crown configuration. Whatever they do on Ming until they change that, I can't consider their watches. Lesson learned. And I traded that watch away to, I don't remember what I got for it. I'm trying to think what watch I picked up for. I think it's what I used to get my Santos 100, which is no longer in the collection either. So anyway, fun times. Matthew says, good point, Joel. I love that too. Also with vintage, I don't have to worry about water splashing the crown while washing hands. Okay, I think I got it corrected correctly. Fair enough points, you lefties. Fair enough points. Escapement Show says, love Doxa. The Destro thing I'm getting a bit tired of, though. The Pelagos LHD is the goat of modern Destro watches, I feel. The Rolex Sprite was a novelty and will be a collector's piece in the future. You might be able to argue it's a collector's piece now because they still command quite a premium on not as much as at the, peak March 2022 post-pandemic crash, but they're still more than retail. But that's true for most of the professional line. Underachieving Watch Collector says, I'm surprised more brands don't use the Sleet SW300, arguably better than the bargain basement Swiss movement. In fact, I have not heard anyone underachieving who's argued that the SW300 is inferior to the SW200. I note that because I've had plenty of people leave comments or write into me telling me after I do Seiko first thoughts videos on 6R movements that they think the 4R is a better movement, even though in Seiko's catalog, the 6R is better in all ways. Better better power reserve, better range on accuracy. It's a more modern movement. At least I think it is. But I know lots of people that are like, I will not buy a 6R from Seiko. I only trust 4Rs. And maybe they trust 8Rs, but 8Rs are super expensive. So, but I've never heard that with the Solitas. In fact, that's one of the common reactions I've heard from people who are fans of Christopher Ward is they do like that Christopher Ward seems to be moving more and more of their watches into SW300 movement territory rather than SW200. The only counter push I've ever heard to that is they're using that as an excuse to raise their prices as well. Or, how much of it is because of the movement and how much of it is additional profit. And they're using the movement as a crutch or an excuse, which are fair criticisms, but if so some people might like the SW200 not for any performance reason, but simply because it suppresses the pricing a little bit more. But interesting point. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Rob says, I love Doxa. Always wanted a black lung sub 300. Underachieving Watch Collector says Shasta paid promotion. I have not had Shasta in years. And I do think they make orange. I haven't checked to see if they caffeinate it though. Scott says, I am a fan of the 300T. The downside is that handset. I mean, is it the color or do you just not like the shapes? Because I do admit the pencil, these are kind of like pencil style handsets. I don't love pencil. That's like my biggest, here are the other, this is not the current one. Here's just the other Doxas that they have. So like the green one, I prefer the orange, but this is just their handset that they like to do. It's kind of I would say it seems to tip out like a pencil style. Anyway, what I was going to say was that's my biggest problem with the Vacheron Patrimonies. I don't like the handset. They're like these real thin, long pencil hands, and everything else about the Vacheron Patrimony I like, but that handset, honestly, I mean, it's enough where it'd be like I'd rather just save for a Calatrava. However, Vacheron has heard me. They heard me years probably before I was born, and was like, that's why we make the Vacheron Tradition now, which has the much more conventional style. What I can't remember if it's dolphin hands or what. But it has a much more attractive handset, in my opinion. They also sell for more, though. So at least used, they do. Joel Bolt says, also, the Sprite is great for lefties because they put the date on the 9. If you wear on your right hand, your eyes must travel significantly further to see the date on the 3. This Doxa does not resolve. Okay. I agree with you. But is it honestly that much eye movement that we care? Let me put it this way. I don't care. But then again, I'm a right-handed person wearing right-handed watches on my right-handed wrist. So I guess the world just revolves around me anyway. So I suppose I never thought about it, but I'm not sure. I'm looking right now, and this watch has the date at the 6, but I'm like, if I look at the 3 and I look at the 9, and I'm like, I mean, I can't tell a difference. So I don't know. Maybe there's like an aesthetic balance thing that would be more of an issue based off of the wrist that one might be able to have, but I don't see it. Underachieving Watch Collector says Seiko 6Rs have terrible accuracy in my experience. And Brent says hi. Well, hi, Brent. Welcome to the live stream. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Speaking of discussion, let us move on from Doxa. Let's get away from dive watches and get away to a brand known for dive watches, and also talk about the Black Bay, which is known as mostly for being the dive watch category, though they have other kind of generic sports Black Bays and such. I probably should have done a pre-recorded video on this, because if there's anything I have learned in my years of doing YouTube, it is that YouTube is where you go with Tudor stuff, because everyone watches all the Tudor videos and you get lots of views. But I could not muster the energy after doing the Tissot video and knowing I was working on the video for Christopher Ward. I just could not bring myself to talk about a new colorway for Tudor. So as you see, as I facepalm, we're going to talk about it now. So here you go, a new Black Bay. They announced it just like 3 days ago, just before Geneva Watch Days started. Again, most of these releases are related to Geneva Watch Days. Article is to Worn and Wound this time. Link is in the video description, so you can actually read the article. But here you go. It's blue and silver. That's what you get. I don't think this zooms. We're going to see if they'll have a better photo here. But you've got silver subdials. It's a nice. The color is nice. It's a deep blue sunburst. My favorite. Sunburst style, like maybe radial brush silver. I'm not quite sure for the subdials. They're so small, it doesn't really matter how they treat it. They do it in a different way so it stands out, but the color alone lets it stand out. So it's a blue Black Bay chrono. My usual complaints are all still here about this watch. So I don't think they have the standard stat summary, but it's $5,675. If you love blue and you like the watch otherwise, this may be the watch for you. The case configuration, the dial layout, the dual subdial approach that they do with the date at the 6, I think all of that looks really good. I still cannot get over. I'm okay with snowflake hands except on chronos. I do not like, you can see it even here in the 10-10 position, just how much of that subdial is obfuscated just because of how fat the hour hand is. If it was the minute hand, which moves faster, I would be a little more sympathetic, but the hour hand is going to spend a lot of time, basically from 2 to 4 and from 8 to 10. It is going to spend a significant amount of time obfuscating those subdials. And I don't think that is an ideal way to is it the biggest deal? No, you can hold the watch at different angles and you can see around it. Most people are just wearing this for style anyway and not using the chronograph function. I don't care. It needs to do its tool function, and I think the snowflake hand ruins it. So even though aesthetically, I think this is a very well put together watch, and I like almost everything about it, and I love this new colorway. I think this is a very good, I think this is a better looking blue than most blues I see. I know some of you all out there are really big fans of watches with blue. I am not. I'm kind of picky about blue watches. I only own one, and this won't be number 2. I'll tell you that, because I still cannot accept this Black Bay formatting on the chronograph, even though I like just about everything else about the watch. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Everything else is going to be the same as usual. Rose marked the old Tudor logo on the crown. These are screw down pushers. The bezel is going to be aluminum. Anyway, I mentioned the date at the 6 o'clock, so it'll have their in-house movement. So chronometer certified, 200 meters of water resistance, at least I believe, when those pushers are screwed down. So it is a dive chrono. So I guess we're still on dive watches, but I'm still going to call this a chronograph first and foremost. So anyway, those are my initial thoughts. I saw the photos when this came out. I only just went through this article really quick this morning. I did not read up on this watch because I cared that little about it. But I know some of you all are big fans, so I did want to bring it up because it will probably be a pretty significant watch for the near term. It'll probably be hard to initially get it at your area dealer that can sell it, but I want to see what you guys think. So Matthew says, blue or pink? For me, the blue is a better looking version than the pink. The pink was okay. For me, the problem with the pink is maybe more branding, because that was branded right to the Visa Cash App, whatever, or was that to the Red Bull Cash App? Everything is just going to be Cash App, so I don't know. Like if it was breast cancer awareness or something, I think I would have been, and they maybe had put some branding related to like the Susan Cohen Foundation or something, that would have maybe resonated with me more. Because I'll wear like breast cancer awareness neckties and stuff. But I just like the blue better. I personally thought the pink one was overhyped, but you know, I think it was limited, so your mileage may vary. It may have deserved to be what it was. So we have a counterpoint. Escapement Show says, this is a great launch by Tudor. Their best looking chronograph they've done. This should be a general release and not boutique only. Oh, it is boutique only. Okay, thank you for catching that. Love the matching bezel with the dial, the 5-link bracelet. I'm going to have to remove your thing so people can see my here. Well, I'm going to give the thumbs up that you've given. So thank you for the alternative perspective. I have not done a side-by-side with this versus the other chronographs. I do agree, of all of these versions, it is, in my view, the best looking one. I do think this blue complements this watch very well with the silver. And I know a lot of people wish Tudor would do ceramic inserts in the watches. I think their aluminum looks very, very good. And I think the reason why they don't go ceramic is if they go ceramic, they feel like they're going to have to do the shiny bezel approach. I have seen brushed ceramic. I think they worry they can't make it look as good as the brushed aluminum does. That's my guess. But I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Bracelet. I've only heard good things about the Tudor bracelets. I had a Tudor 1926. It was not this bracelet. However, the bracelet was comfortable. And then I had a Tudor Black Bay Bronze, one of the big 43 millimeter dive watches, and those don't come on bracelet. So I never got to experience anything but the 1926 on bracelet. But I have only heard good things about the bracelet. Tudor makes a very nice watch, I do like to go and look at them from time to time. But so this being boutique, I would want to wait to try. Okay, yeah, it does. Yeah. 5,675 for the blue. Well, it's called the blue boutique. Okay, I guess I would explain, but it's not limited. That's where I think I was getting confused. So it's not a limited edition. I would probably try, and if you liked this but didn't love it, but you liked it decent, maybe try to wait for it to hit used. They're gonna show up like at David SW in 19. Like they all deal in Tudor. It'll get there eventually. I don't know how much the price will come down, though. It's Tudor. It should come down since it's not limited. It really should, even if it's boutique only. It's just boutique only. It's going to be slower to move, just because less people are going to buy it up front. But let's see. Matthew says, ID guy agrees. I've not seen his video on it yet, but I do think I saw it pop up in my feed. He showed a render today with a pencil hand over Snowflake. Looked great. No, it's somewhat of a trite complaint, but when we're over $5,000, everyone's going to do what they want to do. I will judge off a handset when we're getting $5,000 plus. The handset's going to make a difference in my purchasing decision. I'm okay with not getting my favorite handset. I just think it's the one. For me, it almost feels like Tudor deliberately makes something wrong. I'll say wrong. I almost feel like they deliberately mess something up on every watch. Deliberately. Instinctively, I want to say that can't be true. But then I start thinking conspiracy theories like, does Rolex make them mess something? It's like they put out their Coke bezel watch. Why was it gilt? Like, I like their gilt, like on their black bronze dive watches and stuff. I love the gilt look. It's like that. They should have just done straight up white, though. Objectively, they just should have done it. They did it with their all black sub look-alike, and everyone loved that new watch this year. And so here it's just like, I think the truthful reason that it's got a snowflake hand is because it's in the Black Bay line. And that's the only reason. They're like, it's a Black Bay. We're going to snowflake it. Okay. Maybe we could have compromised. Could we have done little snowflakes on the subdials instead or something? I mean, I don't know. Probably too hard. I don't know. I'm complaining. I apologize. Bree, welcome to the live stream, by the way. Oh, B, I'm sorry. I called you the cheese. I do apologize for that. Is the blue dial on the Overseas a good blue or the Ichi 2? Laughing out loud. Of course, I have to ask, considering my PFP. Oh, your profile picture. Yes, they are. Yeah, no, there are a lot of blues that are nice. Well, all right. The Overseas blue is that sunburn. My blue that I have is a funky blue Moser Pioneer. So those like really deep Ripley style effect blues are really good. So yes, I think the Overseas blue is incredibly attractive. There's a reason why that's like the hardest Overseas to get. The Ichi, yes, I do think that looks good. But if I was to get an Ichi, I'm apologizing if I'm mispronouncing it. I'd probably just get the white. I think it's easier to tell that it's porcelain in the white. And so I kind of prefer that for that reason. But I do think the blue is very, very handsome. No, blue's okay. Blue doesn't go with as much stuff as I think people think it does. So for me, in a lot of instances where someone would say I would get a blue dial, I would probably get a green dial instead, even though green got super overhyped. Like, I liked green before it was overhyped, but then it got too hyped. So now it feels like blue is less liked. But yeah, no, for me, like really, really light, like sky blues, Breitling does a lot of those. Those are like off the table for me. Baby blue, robin egg blue. Most of like Doxa's got a good robin egg blue that works for their watch type. That does not work for most watches for me. But those would be my quick takes on that. Scotty says, if I ever get to a boutique, I'm picking this up. Well, good. I'm glad you have found something that you like. Underachieving Watch Collector says, who needs to use a chronograph between 2 to 4 and 8 to 10? Honestly, most people probably don't use it at all, or they just let it run for the fun of it. But, it is what it is. Joe Bolt says, blue is better. Pink is more interesting. Sure. There's just less pink watches. People probably worry more about that. Well, bluntly, it's twofold. Some people will think pink is too feminine and they won't wear it because there's a machismo thing that they worry about. There's an insecurity there. That's a psych issue that we cannot solve. And then others will think pink won't go with as many situations they might wear it in, which is probably a very objectively true thing. Certain colors go. There's a reason why blacks and whites work so well and why you see dress watches almost always in those colorways, because they go with everything because they're neutral colors. So just those sort of things. But very interesting nonetheless. Underachieving Watch Collector. Sorry, I'm trying to keep pace, but my poor voice is giving out. I have no idea where the closest Tudor boutique is to me. I'm in Minneapolis. Well, I don't know anything about Minneapolis. I couldn't even tell you where your state exactly is because I'm in Kansas and we ain't got nothing here. So, but Tudor has I think it's a reasonably usable website. So if you go there, you can do a search for their boutiques. The Skateman Show says, I hate screw down pushers a la Daytona. So useless if you're wanting to time something in a hurry. I get that they're making it more water resistant, but I would much prefer normal pushers. I've never owned one with screw down pushers, so I cannot comment on that. I like the look. Like, I like how this photo here, I like how they look. I think they look really cool. But I do like if they're really small, like vintage style pusher, like the well, my one chronograph I have is the Zenith El Primero chronometer original. Or that's not, it's original. I don't think they go original. So that one has that, they look like this just without the screw down. I like both, I guess is the way to say. But yeah, I think they had no choice with the 200 meters water resistance. They had to screw them down. They had to. So just one of those things. Scott says, David SW would gladly sell you one for a 40% markup. His prices are high. Maybe on these. It depends on the watch. My Reverso that I traded, I got that from David SW. It was years ago, but it was one of the best prices I could find versus looking on Chrono and with some of the other dealers. But it was used. B says guilt was caffeine-free Coke. Okay, yes. What caffeine-free Coke? Yeah. What a great comparison, because I hate caffeine-free Coke. So the guilt was just on that watch. It just they're going to do a white one. They're going to wait a little bit though. But I think they did it because they're like, let's get a bunch of Coke sales and then let's put the caffeine in and give them the white one in a year or two. I think that's what they're going to do. Underachieving says, but David SW is Archie approved. Yes, it is Archie approved. At least last I saw. It's been a while since I've seen Archie. Brent says, do we even use Chrono function though? I think for most, it's just the look of the Chrono. I found that I was actually trying to sell my Zenith last month, and I took it off the market because I decided, what, I really like the look of it a lot. And I've decided to keep it, but I was feeling a little guilty that I have a Chrono and I don't ever run it. I used to use my Chrono when I had a Citizen Chrono all the time. And Brent goes, I love the blue of the Black Bay 58. So a lot of blue fans here. And B, oh, well, thank you, B. Thanks for engaging with the people. That's what we try and do on the live stream. This is way, way, way overly generous. But I do appreciate the sentiment, and I hope you are enjoying the stream. I get plenty of people that will have different takes than me. That's why we talk through them. I'm just going to give my perspective. But as is a rule that I think all of you know, but in case people watching the recording do not know, do not let anyone on YouTube convince you not to buy a watch because they didn't like it themselves. That is not unless it's Brick Watch Company. We always got to have an exception. Sorry, Brick. If you're watching, I'm sorry, not sorry. Koji, honestly, the Tudor Chrono Pink was a sunburst. It would look eminently more attractive to me, less Pepto-Bismol. The sunburst aspect, I do like. You could still sunburst some other shades, though. Different, depths to it. A fume might work really well with a pink. Joe says the pushers and crown are the best part of this Tudor. I do not like the date window. I think the issue with the date window is going to be that it's not color matched. So, and this comes up with me and with a lot of us all the time. Like, do we want color matched or do we not? I can't just say like it's cheap not to do it because, Patek doesn't color match on like any of their, well, maybe some. I don't know their catalog well enough, but a bunch of their Calatravas are not color matched. It's like, do you want to call attention to the date or do you not? Here's what I would probably do in this instance. Instead of it being the white disc, I might have tried to get it a little more like the silver of the subdials. But I think the logic is the white matches the loom pips. So we've got all these hour markers in white loom. The date window is the same shade of white. That's the logic of it. And so, I get that logic. I personally, when it comes to date windows, prefer more color match date windows. That's my general preference, regardless of brand. But they did well balance it by putting it at the 6. So I think for most people, the date window is going to be seen as inoffensive, but it could have looked pretty cool as a blue. Like Omega, they tend to color match on their 300Ms, and I think it looks really, really good. They don't color match on a bunch of their Aquaterras, and it stopped me from buying them before. So, it is what it is. Let's see. We've got Escapement Show saying, I think the white date window is matching the indices like Dennis said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident that's the logic there. I'm gonna shuffle the order here a little bit. We're gonna run long. I figured we would because I've got six things to cover. I want to go ahead and do the Oris now. Another Worn and Wound article. Again, link in the video description so you can go and actually read it. I'm not gonna. It's not story time with Dennis. We're not going to read the article to you, but they actually have two releases. There's an update to the Chronograph, the Aquis Chronograph that they've got, but they also, what you see here at the top is this new limited edition Diver 65. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to just hit the spec stuff really quick, and then you'll start seeing the photos, but we'll get back to them. So the limited edition is $2,800. That's their vintage style dive watch. It's limited to 1,000 units. And then the Chronograph is not limited. It's their standard catalog, and it's $4,900. Now, I've always liked the Aquis line in general. Oris has got some of my favorite designs. I'm trying to get rid of it, but I do have a Pro Pilot X. But I've always had a soft spot for their dive watches. I just don't tend to wear dive watches very much. This is a weird one to me. So here we can have what you guys think of this blue. I like this blue a lot less than the Tudor blue, but I think it looks okay. It's obviously a very playful take. I see why they've done it limited. I mean, the Swiss made, these are like in a hand font style. So you see the water resistant is in it's a rainbow of different colors. The Oris, it's like a child wrote it, and the article will go into what the tie-in is. So it's playful. So I like the bezel look here. This really brushed out, this monochromed out bezel. And I think that looks really good with this. And again, you see non-color matched date window. It's matched to the loom. It's okay. I would rather have other Orises than this, but if you want something even more playful, Oris likes to play. I mean, they don't go Moser crazy, but they do like to be playful. So they have that going for it. But otherwise, it's pretty much like what you would normally get out of those historic Diver 65s. But the Chronograph, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. I do not like the blue on this one. Here's an example. I think they fumate it, which is cool, but I think it's too aqua in this configuration. It's too light. But I like the style. I would have started with a darker shade, I guess. Neither here nor there. It's trying to kind of look like the Caribbean Sea or some sea, maybe not the Caribbean. Went with a black date disc here, which is interesting rather than the white. I don't know why I think probably to make it stand out better against the numerals in the subdial itself. But the main thing of note here is this is a different configuration. These Aquis divers, I believe, were configured as 6/9/12 subdials, and now they've gone to, I think, the far more conventionally acceptable 3/6/9 format. So I think a lot of people do not care for chronographs where the subdial is up at the 12 o'clock position. They moved it to a much more traditional format. I think it's going to do very, very well for them. If not this specific color, though I think a lot of people will like this specific color because, quite frankly, it's blue, and lots of people love any form of blue you can do. I think it looks not like, I like the handset. I like the indices. I think it's pulled off pretty well. I have never seriously considered chronographs from Oris myself. They do have the non-screw down pushers. So if you want a non-screw down pusher format, Oris has got your back here. I think the subdial configuration is really the main change up though, versus what they had been doing. But let's see, what did they say? Gradient blue dial meant to evoke the ocean, but one can expect a slew of colors and variants to follow in the next few months and years. Oris is never shy about doing more colors. So if you are like me and you do not like this blue, there will almost assuredly be another type of blue, and they will do other colors. I bet their green would look really good with this gradient approach that they've taken, for example. But I mean, they'll probably even have a purple one for one of their big promotion things. So just one of those items of note. But anyway, so a couple new watches out of Oris that was revealed in time for Geneva Watch Days. Joe says, I think circle date window there would better match to the circle indices. He's talking back to the Tudor here we had just talked about. So I'll show it again so that there's context for people who were watching the video. A circle date windows are not very common. I have seen them a bit on I was going to say on chronographs. I struggle to think of any off the top of my head. Tommaso, I'm sure, could rattle some off. Back to the Orises, though. Underachieving says cheap Chinese brands are starting to use loomed date windows, which I think is cool. coolie face. I don't have my sunglasses here to put them on and do coolie face for your emoji. But yeah, that is interesting. If you like Loom, there's a lot of fun. Well, and that was the whole Christopher Ward thing that came out. Like, if you like Loom, there's some really fascinating stuff that's coming out. I have not seen the Loom date windows yet, though. I'll have to look that up. Escapement Show says, the bezel on the Diver 65 reminds me of the Rolex Yachtmaster. I think that's what I like about it, actually. What a good point. Let me put it back up here before I finish reading your comment so people can see it. I hate the new font of the brand on the dial of it. I think that's just because of the special edition thing. Yeah, that's part of why I would never get this. I don't like the kid draw with crayon look on watches. But again, I think this is, what was this? Yeah, this is I was like, I couldn't remember the name of the charity partner. The charity partner is the National Convention of Child Protection Associations. So given who the charity partner is that they're using to help generate money, they're doing a child's handwriting approach. So I don't like that style for watches. I totally get why they're doing it, because this is a charitable watch. And so they tend to, just like a lot of the Oceanic Society groups, when they do charity watches, you get things like turtles on the back, or like I have a Seiko Prospex that's the dial is a shape, is got a pattern of a sea turtle shell. Like, some people aren't going to like that. They'd rather just have, honeycomb pattern or something, but it's because of the charity aspect to it. So that's why it's that way. This is not the GOAT. Like, we may see this bezel format on watches that don't look like kids drew on them. That's just a one-off for this 1000 run thing. Koji says, I'm assuming you hated the KU powder blue uniforms they unveiled for the first game. Well, I didn't love them. I just didn't love them. That pastel colors for me, not a favorite. Escapement Show says, I don't get the concept of diving chronos. Surely it affects the water resistance activating the chronograph underwater. In fact, I don't think you're supposed to activate the chronograph underwater. People who own one, let us know. But I think that's why they tend to have the screw downs on them. And I thought the manual said, don't use the chronographs under the water. You're to dive. And then once you've surfaced like James Bond and you need to time your bomb, that's when you click the chrono. GoldenEye style or something. So I don't know them. Okay. Last things. There are more watches than this, but this is the last one. I was going to do it before the Oris, but I thought I'd end on this one because I thought you guys might have some strong thoughts on this. So this is very, very interesting. So collaboration effort. I can't call it a collaboration watch. It's a collaboration effort between Studio Underdog and H. Moser, commonly just called Moser. Passion fruit themed watches. So here's the deal. We'll go into it a little bit. Each of them made their own watch using the same color scheme. So we've got kind of yellow, and I'm speaking very general, yellow and purple as the colorways. Moser did a perpetual calendar. So that's what you see here. No, that is the Studio Underdog. I'm sorry. Studio Underdog did their chronograph, but it's a change up. We'll talk a little bit about that. There we go. Moser did their perpetual calendar. So the perpetual calendar already exists from Moser. The chronograph already exists kind of from Studio Underdog, but this is a mono pusher. So this is the first, we're assuming the first of their 03 series. Their 01 series is the famous watermelon watch that I think looks really, really cool. The 02 series is the field watch that they came out with. Didn't really resonate with me, but that they didn't come out with that very long ago. I think it was less than a year ago. So this is the series. This is the 03 series, which is the chronograph. Again, looks a lot dial side like the 01, but mono pusher format. But anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Here's the part that I think is the discussion point. 100-piece dual set collection. You cannot buy the Studio Underdog Passion Fruit watch alone. You can't buy the Moser one alone either. Not that you necessarily care, because it's $64,900, and that is because of the Moser. In fact, I think I saw someone in a comment section. This article's with Hodinky. I think it might have been on a blog to watch that I saw the comment. I don't recall. But I think someone did an analysis and figured that the price point here, based off of the differential of the regular perpetual calendars that are not passion fruit themed that Moser already sells, and this $64,900, that the valuation on the Studio Underdog piece to this collection is less than $2,000 US. So most of this is the Moser. So here is the thing of discussion that I think is interesting. What do you guys, I want you all to ruminate on this while I'll go over a little bit on the stats really quick, but I want you to ruminate on this question for me. Who does this collaboration benefit, if anyone? And what do you feel is the reaction of maybe those who have been buying everything Studio Underdog? Maybe not literally every dial configuration, but those that want like every series. And I'm sure there will be a 03 series that is not limited to 100. But fans of that brand, and they learn that there's a collaboration, and they find out this is the collaboration, and the only way to buy in is to buy in at Moser pricing. And we ain't talking like my starter baby's first pioneer Moser pricing. We're talking perpetual calendar pricing, highest high-end pricing. This is some of the most expensive stuff Moser makes, I think. I don't know. I don't remember their whole catalog. They've got a lot. I mean, there's a lot in the Pioneer and Endeavor line that are tens of thousands of dollars less than the perpetual calendars for obvious reasons. But anyway, I want you to think on that because that's what most of the discussion has been about. Here's the basic stats. So I need to turn to Hodinky here because I can't crash course this for you. So, all right, the watches are. I'm trying to figure out which one. All right, so the perpetual calendar, 42 millimeters in diameter, just under 13 millimeters thick. They do a Grand Fou enamel for part of it. They do a sunburst on the. I kind of want to show the picture of this, and we'll go back and look at the picture later. So they do a Grand Fou enamel dial with a sunburst purple to make the passion fruit on the Moser. The base dial is made out of gold, which you can kind of tell when you see the close-ups. Only 30 meters of water resistance, full on. Everything else is a standard perpetual calendar stuff. So it's the caliber 800 movement from Moser, 7-day power reserve, all that fancy stuff with the indicators on the back. You'll see it all. The Studio Underdog is 38.5 millimeters. So very thin, or excuse me, very small chronograph, just under 13 millimeters thick, stainless steel watch. It's not driven by the old Seagull movement. This is the SW510M Solita movement, mono pusher chronograph function, 30-minute counter at the 3 o'clock. The range seconds is at the 9 o'clock, 63 hours of power reserve. So that's what you've got. Here's a quick look at the movements. So this is the Solita movement that Studio Underdog is using with its standard machine finishing. Here's Moser's movement. Some of the perpetual calendar aspects like the year are on the back, so I wanted to point that out. But standard high-end Moser finishing that you have. I'm going to go ahead and get you to some of the pictures. So here is the mono pusher up. Wow, this is being a little laggy. Up here at the, what is that? Roughly the 2 to 2 o'clock position. Yeah, we'll say 1 or 2 o'clock position. And you can see the 30-minute counter. Wow, this is being really weird on the zooms. Hodinky got some close-ups for sure, but I didn't want to zoom in that much. Well, it's good. If you're on a phone, you probably love it. So here's 30-minute counter over at the 3 o'clock and then the small seconds. I think that's very similar to the Watermelon's format, if not exactly the same. And then the Moser, when we get really close, you probably sort of see the base gold that they did their enameling and all that with, and their brushing on the, you can see the radial brushing better here at the chapter ring. But okay, so my quick thoughts. The colorway kind of works for me as a fun watch, like the purple and yellow. I don't honestly think I'd ever buy it, but it kind of works for me. I have never liked any Mosers where you cannot tell the time. Like, I want hour markers. That's my rule. You want to give up minute markers, I'm cool with it. Like, I have enough dress watches where that I'm all right with that. But no hour markers has always been a deal killer for me on Moser. And they do it like across their spectrum. A perpetual calendar that, aside from the date, you need to read the manual to know how to read the perpetual calendar. So I've never liked their perpetual calendars. I'm just going to say that up front. Very well finished watch, very well balanced in a lot of ways. Moser takes a lot of chances. About half of the stuff they do I like, and half the stuff I don't. This is more in the I don't. I like all the finishing. I like how they made it work. I would never want to wear this watch. Studio Underdog, in Moser fashion, basically took away the time telling. Like, they removed all the time telling aspects that I like on their watches. So I can't, like, there's no watermelon seeds, there's no passion fruit seeds here to tell the time. So they made that. This is like my least favorite version of their work. Though I do like the mono pusher. And I watched a video, I think it was at Geneva Watch Days, where I think Andrew Morgan of that YouTube channel, and he was interviewing the CEOs of Studio Underdog and Moser. And I think it was the Studio Underdog CEO said that they kind of took a page out of Moser and decided to use a Swiss movement rather than the Seagull movement, because Moser really emphasizes, like, when they say Swiss made, like, they don't put Swiss made on their dials because they're like 90+% Swiss made, and they think Swiss made as a label is a joke, which I respect them for. However, it did make me wonder, for those of you that are familiar, there's been a lot of talk lately about how the Seagull movement manufacturer has announced that they are not selling small unit runs of their movements anymore, that companies have to buy them in allotments of 10,000 units. Even a brand as popular as Studio Underdog may struggle to just outlay 10,000 units worth of movements up front before they build watches. So I've wondered if they did this move to a Sellita movement because they know that there would be struggles to secure the Seagull movements going forward. Option two was, if they want to do a mono pusher, the Seagull was not going to be an easy accommodation for them, and they might as well get a movement that, they're not going to want to reconfigure a movement. I don't know what their final price point will be for the 03 series, but given where they've been on the affordability spectrum, that's not the space where you go around asking people to re-engineer movements for you. So anyway, the little green hand here is supposed to be reminiscent of the stem of the passion fruit, by the way. And the Studio Underdog incorporated that as well into theirs. It's on the tip of the chronograph seconds, as you can see. So visually, okay. I don't like that. These are like fun summer watches, not designed for serious time telling. I'm surprised there's any markings on the track at all to do Studio Underdog said we can let you tell the time on the chronograph, but not on the actual watch, because we're not going to have even hour markers on it. I mean, it matches with what Moser did, so I totally get it. But at this price point, only rich people could buy this watch. And you have to be really rich, in my opinion, to want to go ahead and drop $65,000 on watches that are situational. And so that it is what it is. But anyway, I wanted to open with that, and then I wanted to get your guys' feedback because this has been hotly debated online. So those of you watching live, what do you guys think? Escapement Show says these look like lollipops. Well, they're supposed to look like passion fruits, not lollipops, but okay. I mean, I could kind of see it. Underachieving Watch Collector says the dial color is hideous. I think it kind of works. I don't know if I want to say it coordinates well, but again, they modeled it on a fruit. So it matched. Like, if you told me it was passion fruit, I would believe you, I guess would be the way I'd say it. Not my favorite color scheme, but I'm not a huge fan of purple on watches. Joe says, I look forward to Studio Underdog 03 mono pushers and other dials. Not only do I not have $65,000, but not a fan of this color combo. Great duo, but this is just for press and media coverage. Koji says, such a bizarre concept, and as usual, Moser doing Moser things. The statement says, the Studio Underdog really suits this color scheme, and I like the upgrade to a Sellita movement, but I know that Moser like to have fun, but it just looks bad. I hope I pronounced bad the way you wrote it. I did my very utmost best. The statement also says, the Moser should have a leap year indicator on the front of the dial, not the back, instead of the mid shape of the power reserve indicator. It's something they've done on all those perpetuals. It's Moser gonna Moser, kind of getting back to Koji's statement. And it's like, Moser just got to be weird, right? They gotta be weird. And some of that weird I like. Like, I'm cool with them as a mine still has their logo pretty clearly subtle, but clearly written on the dial. Then they made it so it was basically like an invisible mark, almost like the signature on the Breguets. And now they don't even put their name on a lot of their dials. Like, I'm cool with that and them not doing Swiss made. And I'm cool with just hour markers and super minimalist dials. They don't do Bauhaus, but they do their own minimalism. But yeah, stuff like this, it's like, I know it's the 12th. That's all I can tell you. Is this at 10:10 or is this at 9:10? I don't know. I guess it's 10. I don't know. I think this is the power reserve because I think this is the small seconds. But is this mostly full or mostly empty? I don't know. I can't tell. I can't tell anything. Well, I can tell it's the 12th. So I don't, that's my struggle, been my struggle with Moser for so many of their choices. But you know what? Doesn't matter. Lots of people love what they are doing. What they've been doing marketing their brand, I think, has been absolutely brilliant. They are perhaps one of the most up and coming independent brands that there is. And even I can't, it's not like I don't like the brand. They have stuff that's for me and they have stuff that's not for me. And it's fascinating just because it's so disparate. Like, they do stuff with like Bitcoin when I'm like kind of cringe on that. And then they do other stuff that's super traditional and elegant, and their integrated sports watch, the Streamliner, I do not like it, but no one can say they cribbed from anyone on that design. It does not look like any other watch I have ever seen. I mean, maybe someone could say it, but I can't say it because I don't know anything else. Skateman says, this is a rich father and son package. I've seen some others suggest that maybe that would be the idea. David Von Slingshot, who has an excellent handle, by the way, says, does it come in quartz, or asks? Sadly, no. But if it did, we might be able to shave another $500 off of the price. I don't know. It'd be interesting if Moser would do a perpetual. Perpetual quartz watches go for a lot less. It would be interesting to see something like that. So I want to weigh in a little bit on what I asked before I dove into all the stats and stuff on the watch designs, and that was like the collaboration. Who does the collaboration benefit? On the surface, I don't think it benefits anybody, really. I think it was probably just a fun thing to do. And because I think the markets are too different. And David goes, lols, jokes for days. Yes, we love our jokes for days. Speaking of jokes, this collaboration is probably in and of itself a bit of a joke. So Studio Underdog price point ranges from, but it's basically seen as affordable tier, right? Moser retail, what's the cheapest retail Moser price? It's around $15,000, I think. So higher tier. So they're two different audiences, kind of. There are probably plenty of people who've bought Mosers who have bought Studio Underdog watches. There are a lot of people who've bought Studio Underdog watches that will never buy a Moser watch because they never want to spend that much money. So on the surface of it, I struggle to see what Moser gains. I don't think they gain a new audience because their watches are way too expensive for the audience that they would be targeting. It's not like them going after Patek buyers, right? Like if they did a collab with Patek, could you imagine? But if they did a collaboration with Patek, you could kind of say, well, there's a Venn diagram of people who spend lots of money on watches. And maybe there's a way, hip and cool Moser and fuddy-duddy Patek, maybe there's a Venn diagram in there somewhere where Moser does something fun with a Calatrava that doesn't look like the watch had been taken advantage of by a race car or something. Sorry, I don't know what to say about these new Calatravas, but this, I don't know. For Studio Underdog, my guess is the CEO just thought it's like it's a new brand. It's up and coming. This seriously respected, high horology independent was interested in your stuff. And I think that was the decision to, do something as a team. Could be kind of cool as a way to tease the mono pusher as a new, mono pusher at what might be a really interesting price point from Studio Underdog. Might resonate really, really well. The negatives, I don't think there's really a negative from Moser with this collaboration, quite frankly. They've done weirder watches than this. Studio Underdog, and this is where the online pushback has been, that they did something this had a watch, like it wasn't a Moser with elements of Studio Underdog watch. And it wasn't a Studio Underdog with Moser providing feedback watch. It was, here is a Moser watch, a Studio watch, but you have to buy them both. And so many of them can't. So many of the people who collect Studio Underdog can't. And you can look on some of the articles. You can tell from the comments. They are deeply offended. Like, you didn't stay in your lane. You went to Richie Richville. Really Richie Richville. This watch is closer to six figures than it is closer to sub 10,000. And it's, I think it alienated a lot of people. Will he get over it? Probably. But in that way, so my overall reaction would be, I think just given how the collaboration executed, on paper, I see why they did it. And I think as creatives, it was probably a lot of fun for them. And so I don't, begrudge them doing it. We've seen stranger stuff, I think. But I think a lot of people felt maybe a little betrayed by Studio Underdog. Like their first big collaboration is something that none of their fans can buy. And that can be a tough pill to swallow, I suppose, if you get hung up on that sort of stuff. Which is why the key is to just have fun, enjoy your watches, and don't get hung up on this stuff. If there's some watch that you can't get because it was too limited or too expensive or they don't make it anymore, there's always going to be another watch out there that will probably resonate with you. So, don't sweat the small stuff. But that is it for me. I know this one went an hour and 30 minutes. We had a lot of watches. There's still more watches out of Geneva Watch Days. Maybe we'll talk about those next weekend. I just can't keep going at this point. My voice is shot. So, and I don't have any more planned. I didn't read any more articles, quite frankly. So we're going to go ahead and call it here. Thank you, everyone who tuned in live. I really do appreciate it, especially being interactive with the chat. That's the part I enjoy. It drives the show. So I very much appreciate you taking the time and spending it with me. Those of you who are watching the recording, share your comments on any of those watches. Tell me how wrong I was about my thoughts on blue watches. I'm more than happy to read them. We will be back in a week for another live stream unless something comes up. And so until next time, I will catch you all on the next video.